Welcome to the Pulse Wave podcast, where we uncover how today's GovTech influencers are having such great successes in life and what is their take on the GovTech industry. The Pulse Wave is brought to you by Metronome. We're a modern tech company that focuses on digital transformation, and we keep outcomes above ego. Please visit us at wearemetronome.com, see what we're all about, and check out our 4Ds of data, development, DevOps, and design. I'm Virgil Verga, your host and chief pulser at Metronome. Today on the Pulse Wave, we have the savage of staffing, ex-Blockbuster video cashier. He is an expert in security clearance recruiting. He is a conference speaker and blogger on all things talent acquisition. He founded, along with his amazing wife, Brooke, Mount Indy, where they change the way that talent is recruited in the cleared space, and they help small to mid-sized government contractors drive growth and revenue through recruiting. Everybody, please welcome to the Pulse Wave, Tommy Weinert. Tom, welcome to the Pulse Wave. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, and thanks for the nice introduction. That was wonderful to hear back. But yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm also good. So one of the main reasons I started a podcast is so I could introduce people. I've always
Hmm.
just wanted to talk about people's accomplishments. And then I guess move into the next part of this. I always ask this question at the beginning. I'm really curious if Tom, in high school or middle school, if you had that authenticity, which, listen, you can be authentic, but it could also lead to not a lot of successes. But right now you're in a point to your life where you're able to be authentic, be yourself, and find success. So I'm curious if you've always been able to do that.
No, I've never thought about that, to be honest. But definitely not in grade school, high school. Probably not until honestly, probably not until I was older and doing a lot more of my passions, like doing a lot more music stuff. But to be completely honest, it's pretty easy to be authentic when you run your own company.
Yeah, right. So, you're, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, dating you as well. There weren't a lot of people, with beards and tattoos walking around in the industry. There just
Yeah.
weren't. And have you ever felt out of place in this industry?
I felt out of place a lot. I remember the first event I went to was TechNet in Hawaii, and I was with Matt Carabia and some. I was actually just with Matt Carabia, I think. And I went up to, I saw him going up to these different vendors and asking all of these really great questions because he had been in the industry for a while. And I walked up to Raytheon and was like, I've never heard of you guys. What do you guys do? And just the dumbest question I could have asked. But at the beginning, I felt out of place all the time. I feel like the only way not to feel out of place is by proving yourself. But the other thing I realized is I don't mean this to sound, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but everyone's full of shit to some extent. And when you kind of start realizing that, it helps you feel a little bit more in place, I guess.
It is, I agree with you. When you've got your own company and you're able to build the culture that you want and wear whatever you want and sort of have whatever taglines and values that you want. So in your company, how do you promote your employees? I'm assuming you want them to be as much themselves as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about creating an open environment. I mean, I think I go back and forth on that a lot because I want people to outwardly promote themselves, and I realize that is not in everybody's nature.
That's an interesting topic for me right now. We just launched this podcast. I'm going to start trying to get a little more out there when it comes to LinkedIn. I think there's a good opportunity to just connect more. And saying that, one of the few people that I engage with, because I think your posts on LinkedIn are they're thoughtful. And when you're talking about looking for the right fit for a job, your post starts out by saying, "We have lost our minds." You got a lot of engagement on this one. I love
Yeah.
this one. And 4 short years ago, 99% of us were working in an office. None of us dreamed of remote work. We didn't have the systems or management chops to build remote culture, and those are all true statements. Some folks now are assuming that employers are deceiving the workforce by putting that they're remote jobs because they could never be remote if you have to be in a certain area. They can't be remote if you have to step foot in an office ever. But what you do say at the end here is that you can say from experience that often the answer is much simpler. Like, we are not set up for taxes, or we need the head of engineering to see the team now and again. And I think ultimately, for me, the way I feel about this, and it's a great topic, and again, it gets a lot of heat. At the end of the day, I guess the position is what it is.
Mhm.
And to wonder why a specific company has a position in a certain place or why they need those requirements, I don't know how much energy you need to spend on that.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. But like, we've got an epidemic of unqualified thought leaders that have the ear of the world. Why would you waste your time on a position that you as an employee doesn't want to do? But my point of that post too is we have come a very, very long way. I remember when COVID happened and I was like, there is no way government contractors are going to be able to adapt. And within a couple days, we adapted. This is one of the biggest achievements I think the government has pulled off in the last decade, was maintaining the workforce the way that they did with no major leaks, no major issues that we know of. That was huge, and now we're correcting a little bit. But for some reason, there's um, and I may take heat for this, but like, you've got to be realistic. Like, some jobs can't be done remotely. Um, there is a major benefit from being in the office with people, and it's quicker. I can tell you, for my team, it's a lot easier for them to knock on my office and ask me a question than it is for them to get me on email. Is remote work great? Absolutely. Can you get better talent, maybe less expensive talent that way too? Absolutely. The one thing that people aren't realizing about that is the further you push your work remote, the quicker it goes across the ocean, and all of a sudden everything is just being offshored. Why would somebody say, hey, if I can get talent anywhere, why would I pay for talent in California when I could pay for talent in India?
You mentioned unqualified thought leaders, and it sort of makes me think about, if you would have told me 10 years ago, Tom, that if you went onto my LinkedIn or your LinkedIn and there would be influencers
Right.
in the DoD, in Intel, in industry that are getting a lot of attention. They're getting a lot of eyes, and which is leading to some really successful marketing practices. And at the end of the day, they're getting work out of it, and they're able to help. So this is my question: are you surprised at the growing influencer community on LinkedIn?
I'm not. I'm not surprised at it. And I mean, it's just like everything. Like, all social media is filled with influencers creating imaginary lives, essentially. I'm not surprised. Like, if I wanted to go on LinkedIn tomorrow and have a viral post, all I would have to do is go in there, say that there's ATSs that automatically reject resumes. Humans aren't looking at the resumes. And if you really want to get a job, you should do X, Y, and Z. Plus, everyone that gets rejected for a job is qualified and businesses are stupid. Like, that's what these people are saying. And then they say, buy my course to show you how to beat the ATS. And it's really a tragedy to think about, because those people are like, the people that are listening to that are screwing themselves out of jobs. They're basically thinking that there's a system that's out there to prevent them from getting a job. And that's not the truth. And listening to this type of garbage is really doing them more harm than good. So, your question was, am I surprised that there's influencers on it? No, I mean, like, any way to make a buck. So these people, that's what these people are doing. Looking back, like you said, I probably could have never forecasted that there would be government contract influencers, which there really are.
I love it, right? Like we feel like we're sort of in it together a little bit more. You're seeing enlisted folks and folks that are in the government are right along with everybody, engaging, posting, commenting, liking, and that's engagement. If you can think back 20 years ago, you would have never seen or heard from that individual ever unless you might have run into them at a conference.
Right. That is,
So
yeah, it does seem accessible, and it seems like, yeah, I've seen some government people commenting and stuff, and I'm like, oh, they are human, like they do have opinions. So it's,
yes, they do.
yeah.
So back to Mount Indy. You found Mount Indy to clearly help small, mid-sized companies grow their revenue in the cleared space, and you started the company with Brooke. It's been several years. Love hearing about the success you guys are having. I'm curious, just at a high level, how has working with your wife, because I do the same thing, and people always say, there's no way I could ever do that.
Um, Seeing each other grow in professional ways is just awesome. You get to see that like individual performance at a very different level. It's like one thing if like one of your managers is kicking ass, but like when your wife has like transformed into like an executive right before your eyes, it's super cool to see. So I find it to be incredibly rewarding.
So you and Brooke, Mount Indy, what are you right now are you concentrating on, and how are you really giving back and helping the community with Mount Indy recruiting services?
By nature, we work with an incredibly diverse applicant pool or talent pool, I should say, and we privileged to be able to work with veterans on a daily basis. So whenever I talk to and speak at other like recruiting events that are in the commercial sector, and they're talking about like veteran hires, I always think about that. I'm like, man, it's like we hire like 70% veterans just by nature of the work that we do. So I always thought that that was pretty cool. And before I got into this business, I'll be blunt, like it's nothing I cared about, but now I do. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, but I should say it wasn't on my radar before. Most of our companies that we work with are probably between 30 and 300 employees, with some larger companies too. But um, we're not a company that like will go in, fill one of your positions, you'll never hear from us again, kind of take the money and run. Like we like to be strategic counterparts with our government contractors, and we're able to help them with proposal strategy sometimes. We're able to help them find positions that they or fill positions that they thought were impossible to fill. Um, but essentially, I think we really simplify talent acquisition and help companies see uh, how talent acquisition can be revenue generating and not be like a cost center. And I've said this a lot. I think government contractors in general, some are different. Obviously, Metronome is very different, but they don't understand how they make money, right? And they take so much time building distinctions around software development or cybersecurity, and they invest in that, and they don't invest in the recruiting engine, which essentially is the thing that is generating revenue for your company. And um, that is something that, from a training standpoint, we help hiring teams figure out and execute towards. And from a recruiting standpoint, we can basically deliver on that. So um, that's our real advantage. Like I said, we make it easy and we understand the space. Brooke likes to say we're able to read beyond the scope of work. Like, give us a scope, we know how to execute on it. Try giving that to a large recruiting firm, they're gonna be like, what the hell is this, and how do we even find these people? So um, yeah, that's really our advantage.
That was my next question. So if they're going to come and be a little bit cheaper, why does it really benefit to use y'all then?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you exactly, because first thing, they're not cheaper. This is something that I don't think a lot of companies understand. They get a huge name, they get a large staffing firm, they've got a seasoned salesperson that comes in, may know GovCon, talks the talk a little bit, takes the job rec and puts it on the desk of a 22-year-old recruiter who has never worked in the business. They don't understand it. Your rates may be cheaper than their the other jobs they're working, and your rec gets put on a pile of 100 recs, and they basically shuffle it up in. So first big difference is we don't collect contracts. If I get a requisition from you, we are working it, and we're working it. These other larger firms, they don't operate that way. They look at like what's the closest to the money for them, which they should. They've built billion-dollar businesses doing this, but and you're not getting the same attention. So it's different with us. That's the big distinction too, is if we get a requisition from your company, we are going to work it, and we're going to give you somebody within 72 hours. If not, we'll give you all the data to around, why we can't and how we can be successful. So much different touch.
I appreciate that. And it does make a big difference. We've used staffing companies that had no experience, and then we've used ones like yourself that do. And clearly there's a big difference.
Yeah.
So, Tom, I don't know if you're ready, but this is the most exciting part of the entire Pulse Wave podcast. Are you ready for the Pulse Check? Where I'm going to ask you 3 questions that you have never heard before. You have no clue what these 3 questions are going to be, where you will answer them with a song lyric or a song title. Are you ready for the Pulse Check? Question number 1, Tom. How efficient is GovTech in talent acquisition?
How efficient is GovTech in talent acquisition? So a song title. It's the waiting that's the hardest part. Tom Petty.
It's a good one. Question number 2. What feeling do you get when a high-value hire backs out of the job the day they are about to start work?
How about Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit? I liked Limp Bizkit back in the day. I would never listen to them now, but they're playing the circuit right now, and they're amazing. I would never listen to them, but I'm getting such a kick out of seeing these old dudes out there rocking for these 20 plus crowds. It's pretty crazy.
Bizkit. Anyway. Was it Fred Durst?
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah.
Come on. All right. Rock and roll into number 3. How excited do you get when a stranger talks to you an entire plane ride?
Highway to Hell, AC/DC. That's a good one.
All right, one more time. Tom, thank you so much for being on. He's an ex-Blockbuster video cashier. He's an expert. Him and his wife, Brooke, in security clearance recruiting. He's a conference speaker and a blogger on all things talent acquisition. And most importantly, him and his wife, Brooke, founded Mount Indy, kick-ass recruiting company. They can do everything in your cleared recruiting needs. Tom, thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me, man. It was a blast.
I'll talk to you soon.